Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. The highest rents in the country, right here in BC.
More people are renting, and so that creates upward pressure.
A look at what needs to change for prices to come down. Plus, the data shows a drop in reported anti-Asian hate crimes, but advocates say the numbers don't tell the full story.
I think the community itself is feeling unsafe after 3 years. I don't see this as anything getting better.
Why some have given up on trying to get help, and the Vancouver company that's seeing big gains south of the border.
I ordered online, and ever since then I became obsessed.
How Aritzia plans to ride the wave of American success to go even further.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Anita Bathe. We begin tonight with even more evidence of Canada's cost of living crisis. Every year, the federal government releases data on the price of rental housing, and once again, the numbers in BC paint a grim picture. The provincial vacancy rate is sitting at 1.3%. As for the prices, well, Justin McElroy is here live with us tonight on our top story. Justin, I think it's fair to say renters are hoping that you're coming to us with a bit of good news to start our show tonight.
Yeah, it's great. We can all go home, Anita. Once again, we all know in British Columbia renting is tough, but the numbers that the federal government puts out once a year compares the entire country, and so it allows us to look at overall trend lines as well as where we set up with other places, and it's gotten even tougher than before. If you take a look at this chart, we're scanning through 47 cities that the federal government measures for rental rates. And look, right there at the top, Vancouver, $2,000 for a two-bedroom unit on average. That's all of Metro Vancouver, mind you. That's $200 more than Toronto. And look, in third place is Victoria. In fourth place is Kelowna. It's just not great in any major British Columbia centre. And keep in mind, those numbers are the overall average. It includes lots and lots of people who have lived in their places for decades. But when you split off the differences in this next chart between people who have been living in their places for a long time versus people who are seeking new available vacant units, well, the yellow line is the occupied one. The red line is those vacant units. Instead, look at that gap. It's a 43% difference in price, about $700 per month. Times that by 12, that's a lot in a year. And overall, it's just, you can slice it any metric you want right now for renting in British Columbia. It's never been tough. It's much tougher these days than it has been even 3 or 4 years ago.
So, of course, the multi-million-dollar question, what can or will governments do to try to alleviate the pressure?
Well, on a federal government level, monetary policy is a thing that they focus a lot on, as well as incentives in a whole bunch of different areas for construction. They put in a new foreign buyers tax as well, though that's already in place in British Columbia. But on a local level, the question that always comes up is what do you do with land? How do you do rezonings? How much can people build? How much do you believe that building new supply is going to help solve the problem or simply exacerbate it? But currently in British Columbia and most of the major cities, the leaders believe that the issue is to build more, including in the city of Vancouver.
You know, not to oversimplify things, but anyone who tries to fight the supply versus demand curve loses every single time. And so we have an issue. We're seeing it now. We do not have enough supply. We have a lot of demand. And so we have to build more of all different types of housing stock, and we have to build it a lot faster.
But even if you build that housing faster, it takes a while to get online and for those new units to have an impact in terms of the vacancy rate, which then impacts the overall rate for renting. So at least in the short term, it's not great news if you're looking for a unit in British Columbia.
No kidding. Thanks, Justin. To Surrey now, where the decision on whether to keep the RCMP or transition to a municipal police force is being delayed. The BC government says it needs more time to make a decision.
That considerable work has gone into developing these plans and reports. However, the Director of Police Services has determined that additional information is required to fully inform consideration of the matter and has made a request to the parties for that information.
The public safety minister says it's an important matter and a decision will affect policing not just in Surrey, but right across the province. The Surrey Board of Trade calls the delay unacceptable, especially with no timeline for when a decision will be made. The mayor of Surrey maintains that the province should have already gotten all the information it needs to make this call.
I'm actually a little bit surprised that the minister needed more information. Certainly the report that was provided by the City of Surrey was fulsome, and I am sure that the information that was presented by the RCMP was fulsome.
The Surrey Police Service is echoing the mayor's stance on the holdup, saying it's unfortunate that a matter of such critical importance to the community is being delayed. Well, Metro Vancouver mayors are releasing their transit wish list for the next 10 years, and it's a hefty price tag. Over the next decade, they are calling for $20 billion worth of new transit investments. The plan has priorities ranging from building a gondola to SFU and extending the Millennium Line all the way to UBC. But the highest on the list of priorities for the Mayor's Council are buses. The plan includes doubling bus service by 2035 and adding up to 11 rapid bus lines. The mayors say multiple investment plans with higher levels of government will be required. Premier David Eby has appointed former Victoria Mayor Lisa Helps as an advisor on housing solutions. Helps served as mayor for 8 years after being elected in 2014. Last year, she announced she would not be seeking a third term. In her new role with the province, she will help design and develop the BC Builds program. It's an initiative to build housing for middle-income families, individuals, and seniors. Helps is the latest public official to be appointed as a special advisor to the province on key government issues in recent weeks. We're learning more tonight about a former Vancouver elementary principal who's being sued by the school board. The board alleges Tricia Rooney stole thousands in donations that were meant for families in need. But now a Vancouver parent says she raised concerns about Rooney nearly a decade before all of this. Our Bethany Lindsay joins us now. Bethany, it's not just one parent who was suspicious before either, is it?
No, Anita, there were actually several parents who had questions about what was happening to the money that was supposed to go to their kids' Mandarin program. And this was all before Rooney was officially accused of misappropriating $170,000 from Britannia Elementary. She was principal there from 2017 to 2020. The school board alleges she pocketed fundraising money and stole gift cards meant for struggling families. I should point out, of course, that these allegations have not been proven, but now a parent at John Norquay Elementary, Barbara Lee, came forward to me saying she and others had similar suspicions about Rooney at that school. They say the books and other resources they were promised for the Mandarin program weren't showing up in classrooms. Tricia Rooney was principal at Norquay at the time. Lee says she asked Rooney where the money was going and didn't get a straight answer, so she escalated things to the school board.
The Vancouver School Board said that they looked into it and that they didn't see any irregularities, but we asked them to show us the report, but they showed us some typed up ledgers that didn't account for anything. Then I kept pushing and they sent me a cease and desist letter.
So this letter was written by a school board lawyer in October 2014. It quoted several allegations that Lee had made about financial improprieties at Norquay, and it warned, your relentless personal attacks on school district personnel are neither helpful nor fair. While we recognize you may disagree with the responses you receive from the district, we need to advise you that the school district reserves all rights to respond to any further defamatory statements. Now, again, Lee's allegations about what happened at Norquay have not been proven, and the school board says it conducted an internal review at Norquay back in 2014 and found no evidence of fraud.
So, Bethany, with news of the VSB lawsuit against Tricia Rooney, how does Barbara Lee feel about everything now?
You know, she told me she has a real mix of emotions. She feels somewhat vindicated on one hand, but also angry at the same time, and she wants to see action from the Vancouver School District.
I think the school board trustees, the new school board trustees, has to look at the involvement of the senior staff that are still there, that were there at the time, and their complicity and their contribution to what happened afterwards, what happened to me.
So Lee said she also wants a criminal investigation into Rooney. I should add that I tried to reach out to Rooney to ask for her comments about all of this, but she did not return any of my calls.
Bethany Lindsay reporting for us tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Anita.
Well, 3 years after a spike in anti-Asian hate associated with the COVID-19 pandemic, police data shows a drop in reported incidents. But as Zara Premji explains, while it's tempting to think things are getting better, advocates say those numbers aren't telling the full story. And a warning, this story contains images that some might find disturbing.
I am just an ordinary people, like everybody else.
But Ivan Pak says feeling like everybody else has been next to impossible for him and many others in the Asian community.
Chinese.
Okay. From racist slurs being hurled in a coffee shop, to someone knocking over a senior citizen, to racist graffiti and more.
Seeing people coming to Canada for a better life and better hope, and they're being assaulted.
These are just a few of the hateful acts against Asian people in Richmond, Vancouver, and across the Lower Mainland over the last 3 years.
The community itself is feeling unsafe after 3 years, and I don't see this as anything getting better.
Richmond RCMP says initial information suggests a significant decline in hate incidents during 2022. While the numbers for 2022 aren't out yet, the number of hate crimes and incidents went from 34 in 2020 to 46 in 2021, with 67% being racially motivated, and 61% of those racial incidents were directed at Asians. Vancouver Police says from March 2020 to December 15, 2022, 204 hate incidents or crimes against Asian people were reported to them. 98 in 2020, 62 in 2021, and 44 in 2022.
I take those numbers with caution, right? The reality is people have just given up. The reality is nothing's really been done, right? There's only one city in the province that has a dedicated hate crimes unit when the rest of Canada have dedicated hate crime units.
Richmond's mayor agrees numbers reported may not reflect the whole picture.
If people just keep it to themselves and they bear the problem that has been caused in the upset, then it's very difficult for us to do anything about it.
No fears the hate will spread for generations to come.
I'm thinking about my daughter. I want her to be in a society 10, 15 years down the road where she can walk down these streets and not feel and be afraid of being pushed or shouted at.
Mayor Brody says more officers have been brought on, and a campaign called Hate Has No Place encourages people to report hate crimes.
We will continue to do what we can every day of the year.
Advocates encourage witnesses to say something if they see something. And to those who target Asian people for hate,
reach out to me, talk to me. I would like to be a friend.
Zara Premji, CBC News, Richmond.
To Kamloops now, where we're learning what led to a deadly ammonia leak at an ice-making facility last year. An investigation has found it was a combination of broken communication and changes to staffing over the better part of a decade. 1 person died and 3 were hospitalized in the ammonia leak inside the Arctic Glacier ice building last May. A report by Technical Safety BC released today found before workers began to take a refrigeration system apart inside the building, they mistakenly believed ammonia was removed and a significant amount of deadly gas rushed out when a valve was opened. The report says if a licensed contractor was involved with the system removal, an assessment would have likely happened and identified the ammonia still in the systems. Well, yet another hit for hundreds of workers in our beleaguered forestry sector. Canfor says it is permanently closing its mill and pellet plant in Chetwynd. It's also closing its sawmill in Houston for an extended period as part of restructuring. The Union for Workers at both mills says at least 400 people will be out of a job, making it tough for those who are laid off to stay in those remote communities. Just 2 weeks ago, Canfor announced it was closing the pulp line at one of its Prince George mills and cutting 300 jobs. The steelworker says it fears more cuts are coming.
Even in the smaller towns, it's obviously it's not easy just to sell your house and move and find other work. Usually you have, in this day and age with mortgages and high home prices, if you're going to find other work, you got to commute somewhere else. I mean, in Chetwynd, Port St. John is an hour plus away, so is Dawson.
Community support teams have already been sent to help affected workers, and the province has pledged more help for the sector, including a $90 million manufacturing jobs fund. Well-known Vancouver clothing company Aritzia is setting its sights on American fame. The brand, which deals mostly in women's clothes, has seen staggering double-digit growth in the U.S. recently. But as Paula Duhatschek explains, that kind of rapid rise can come with big risk.
It's clear from her TikTok, Christine Calais loves Aritzia. The Nashville resident had never heard of the brand until a year ago. Now it fills more than half her closet.
I ordered online, and ever since then, I became obsessed.
Aritzia has been in the U.S. for years, but recently its popularity has really taken off. Some have called it the hottest fashion chain in the country, and last quarter, its U.S. revenue grew nearly 60% compared to the year before.
It's surprising to see a new fashion brand coming out of Canada, but it seems to be really working. And in a way, it's following the model of Lululemon to great success.
Part of what makes the brand unique is it's somewhere between fast fashion and designer. Plus, the brand isn't just Aritzia. It owns multiple different labels that range from workwear and activewear to jeans and jackets.
They've been really great at being able to pivot their assortment and really target towards what the consumer actually wants.
Now, Aritzia wants to ride that popularity by more than doubling its U.S. business by 2027.
We believe in order to be a wildly successful and internationally known brand, you have to be famous in the U.S.
Still, success does carry a level of risk.
Certainly, it can also become harder and harder to replicate that level of success as you open more and more stores. And unfortunately, we live in a world where investors want to see more and more stores at virtually any cost. So growth becomes the enemy inherently.
And expansion in an era of inflation with a looming recession is risky too. Shoppers may start to cut back.
It's not affordable with the prices going up. It's just too expensive.
Aritzia's prices sometimes don't make sense.
There may be challenges ahead, but the company says if expansion goes well, the U.S. is just the beginning. Paula Duhatschek, CBC News, Calgary.
In other retail news, a new report says Home Depot shared personal customer data with the parent company of Facebook without proper consent. As Thomas Dagla reports, Canada's privacy watchdog says information come from electronic receipts from the home improvement retail giant.
Shoppers at Home Depot are often asked for their email address at checkout, ostensibly to send an e-receipt like this, making returns easier. Or at least that's what many customers were led to believe.
We're busy, we just think we're getting a receipt.
I don't really look at any of the fine print that's on the screen.
It turns out since 2018, the retail giant was sharing Canadian e-receipt data with Facebook's parent company.
As you hear more about things like this, it's like, no, I'd rather opt not out of it.
In a new report, the Federal Privacy Commissioner slams Home Depot for failing to obtain shoppers' consent.
When they were buying at the counter, they had no reason to suspect that this information would be shared.
In what Meta calls its offline conversions program, Home Depot sent its customers' purchase information and encoded email addresses. In turn, Facebook used that data to tailor ads to individual users.
They're taking these email lists, uploading them into Facebook so that you can retarget your audience.
What's more, the privacy watchdog says other retailers may be doing the same if they're asking for your email address.
This practice is not consistent with privacy law. It has to stop.
He worries in some stores, customer data could be used to glean sensitive details about a shopper's health or sexuality without them ever knowing.
I'm certain that other companies are doing this, and this is a wake-up call that privacy is important. It's a fundamental right.
The hardware chain told CBC News it stopped using the data sharing tool 3 months ago once the privacy commissioner raised concerns. Home Depot said it values and respects the privacy of its customers. Thomas Dagg of CBC News, Toronto.
A long-running Vancouver cafe may suddenly be one of the city's hottest restaurants thanks to a glowing endorsement from Yelp, which deemed it the top place to eat in all of Canada for 2023.
People really support us, really support. When people come in once, they never go back.
Yes, Northern Cafe and Grill in South Vancouver clinched the #1 spot on Yelp's list of 100 places to eat. The ranking was determined by user nominations as well as rankings. The diner opened in 1949 to feed workers in the area, and Jimmy Ma, who you just saw, took over the business with his wife Connie in 2008. Well, this mild January we've been experiencing is unfortunately coming to an end. Environment Canada is extending its special weather statement, advising most of the province of a cold snap. It says Arctic air will invade the province tomorrow night. It's also warning about highway conditions.
I would also encourage people, if they are traveling at all, check the highways forecasts and those highway route conditions before you head out, as things can be quite a bit different up over the mountains than they are even in the valleys.
Wind gusts will reach the Sea to Sky and Fraser Valley regions by Saturday night. And this is where we bring in our meteorologist, Johanna Wagstaffe. I know you're watching all of this closely, Joe, but how strong are those winds actually expected to get?
Well, I think we'll see a couple rounds of the winds first as that cold front moves across the province, really starting Friday in the northeast. We'll see sort of gusts upwards of 60 kilometers per hour on that leading edge, so blowing snow as we also get a shot of snow. And then once that air mass is in place across the whole province Saturday night, we're going to look for Arctic outflow to set up. So that's when we see those winds racing from inland through the inlets towards the coast. So even in Metro Vancouver, Sunday morning, we could see some gusty winds, particularly if you're lining up with Howe Sound, those winds racing from the northeast and then out through the valley as well. So definitely something to keep an eye on here is that special weather statement. For the south coast, that temperature drop will be 5 to 10 degrees below seasonal, which will translate to a 10-degree temperature drop Saturday night for us, going from 7 degrees in Vancouver in the afternoon to, maybe a -5 or -6 Saturday night. For the interior, we'll look to see temperatures almost 20 degrees colder than normal. And it's not just that we're getting an Arctic blast with below seasonal temperatures. It's also that we've had such a mild January, particularly the past couple of weeks have been so above seasonal. This rapid shift in temperatures will be quite notable. This cold front we had move through today is what brought us the drizzle, even mist at times. We'll keep a slight risk of some moisture through tomorrow morning before we get a bit of a break. This is the Arctic boundary, and it is coming to us from the northeast, sweeping down towards the south as we head into the weekend. The good news, it's not expected to stick around all next week. It's really a 3 or 4 day visit. But Anita, the Arctic air mass does not have a great exit strategy. So I'll tell you what it's thinking as far as departure coming up in a bit.
Okay, the mystery. We'll wait for it. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Well, to mark Lunar New Year, the mayor of Prince George is giving his municipality a special gift. It's a poetic new Chinese name. Simon Yu is the city's first mayor of color and of Chinese descent, and he says he took in several considerations when choosing this name.
When I learned that it is very difficult to translate the Prince George exactly into Chinese, so I just thought, if there's a way without changing the meaning of a Prince George, and yet we can let more people know about this area. And so I just thought that the unique feature of a summer lake perhaps is the way to go, because it sounds, the direct translation is PG. P is a very rare used word. It basically really means continental watershed divide. That's what it is. And the second word is the base. Normally it means it's a mountain, it's a foundation. So the sound is exactly G. So the PG, the 2 words, it means on this rock, the water started going to different directions. So that's exactly what Summer Lake is. My grandfather, when I came to Canada, gave me some of his writings. He explained to me some of the meaning behind it. And so I always find it's very interesting. So over the years, I just took on as a hobby and practice the calligraphy a little bit. I'm not very good because I don't have a teacher. I just basically doing a bunch of imitations to see what I see, other people write. But over the years, this is the result. I became the head of the city, so I thought it was obligation to share a little bit of my cultural background with the city and with the people I love. And but actually, the Chinese tradition in Prince George area is very deep. The Chinese came here when they built railway, and we've been settling here ever since. Actually, I'm the latecomers. I only been here 50 years. Many family I know has been here for quite a few generations. So the tradition of celebrating Chinese New Year, actually, it goes back when the railway came, the Chinese came, the celebration came as well.
I always check it. My Apple Watch is always on.
Coming up, it's a central part of many people's morning routines, right up there with a quick shower and a cup of coffee. But do you know how your phone's weather forecast actually works? After the break, Johanna is back with her exploration of it all. Thanks for watching our commercial-free live stream tonight. An Indigenous comedian from Sag King First Nation is bringing laughter and representation to social media. Sherry McKay told CBC Indigenous how her life as a content creator began and what impact she hopes to have on Indigenous youth.
Hey everyone, it's Sherry McKay coming to you live from Winterpeg, man. It's cold out. It is so warm today. I'm wearing my slides, going for a walk in the snow. Watch out, I might even wear a bikini.
My name is Sherry McKay and I'm an Indigenous content creator. When I went back to school as an adult, my first year, I got like the bubbly personality award. And I was like, oh, I don't think I'm that funny, like, you know. My grandmother raised me and we moved around a lot. We were on social assistance and it was just me and her. Sometimes I would bounce back and forth from my mom and my grandmother. When they would have a hard time with me, they would kind of take turns looking after me. Throughout my entire life, I went to about 15 schools. I thought it was like kind of relatively normal. But when I think about like my kids went to one school. It was difficult because you have to basically not only get to know a new community in a new area, but now the new people and the kids, and just get to know everybody, make new friends. That was always the hardest part. My aspiration was actually to be a police officer and to join law enforcement. The closer I got to it, the more I discovered that that wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. I really found this interesting creative outlet through storytelling and wanting to bring it to the screen and wanting people to hear and watch, more specifically like comedy. I was trying to utilize the skills that I learned in college because I failed my creative communications program. And I was like totally bummed out. In about 5 years, I would like to see myself starring and writing in my own sitcom. And in about 10 years, I would love to have a feature film. I would just say whatever people want to do, whether like their dreams, their aspirations, their career goals, to just go for it.
want to take a moment now to highlight the CBC Explore series, Planet Wonder. It's hosted by our very own Johanna Wagstaffe, and the series asks unexpected climate questions, taking you on a journey to find the answer. For example, most of us like to check our weather on our phones at least once a day, maybe once every couple days, but how reliable is your cell phone forecast? Johanna is looking to find out.
What's the weather in 5 months for my wedding? I don't know. You said it wasn't going to rain. Actually, I did. Now, you might think I smirk at our use of weather apps, but I actually love them. I think it deepens our relationship with weather. I just know it's not my forecast, and I worry about our reliance on them during extreme weather. So that got me wondering, how reliable is the weather on your phone? After 15 plus years of weather forecasting, it still amazes me that we can see the future. I mean, predict a hurricane or a heat dome that literally doesn't exist yet, just particles in the atmosphere that will likely come together in a way that will dramatically affect people. We've come a long way to get to the point where this forecast just shows up on your cell phone. It wasn't until the 19th century that the Western science of weather forecasting really began, out on the ocean. The electric telegraph meant weather reports could be transmitted from sea to a nearby port faster than the clouds could travel. Game changer. But these early forecasters were really just following the movement of storms without understanding the science behind it. It was Norwegian meteorologists in the early 20th century who worked out the mathematical equations which govern the physics of the atmosphere, the same equations we use today. Thank you, Norwegians. Talk. Forecasts have become more accurate as we've obtained more data, especially from satellites, and developed super fast computers. There's something else that makes meteorology such a unique science: global cooperation. National agencies create their own forecasts, but knowing what the atmosphere is doing in one country helps the forecasts in another. That collaboration is more important than ever. Climate change is not only increasing extreme weather, it's impacting poorer countries the most, i.e. the ones that don't have those supercomputers. So what does this all mean for the weather on your phone? To get some perspective, I met up with Chris Doyle, who's done pretty much every kind of forecasting you can imagine, including being chief meteorologist for the 2010 Olympics. Chris, it's so nice to finally meet you. I've been following you for years, and I seem to learn something new about meteorology every day from you, so nice to see you in person.
Oh, it's lovely to see you, Joanna.
And this is a spot that you come out to quite often. Why do you love it out here?
I just think it's sort of a part of nature, very close to the city.
And you're sort of in the weather too, which
you
is...
totally are. You can see the sky better here than anywhere else.
I wanted to start with a question that I get all the time. I'm sure you do too. How reliable is the weather on your phone?
Well, it kind of depends to a certain extent what app you're using. So there's one produced by Environment Canada called WeatherCan, I believe it's called. And that takes the forecast produced by meteorologists at the Pacific Storm Center in Vancouver and sort of translates it into icons and small amounts of text and drops it on your phone. And that's produced by people that are looking at the weather 24/7. A lot of apps take information directly from weather models, digital information that create a sort of automated forecast hour by hour for really as long as you like. And there's no human intervention in that. So if there's problems in those app forecasts early on, they're not going to be corrected. So they can be misleading.
Hold up. Let's hear what you think about those weather apps. How reliable do you think the weather on your phone is?
It'll be raining, it'll say it's only cloudy, so I find it's not really that reliable, but it's to help me coordinate my outfits, so I always check it. My Apple Watch, it's always on.
It's not too bad, it's within 1 or 2 degrees, and it'll tell me whether it's raining or snowing.
What app do you use?
I just asked Siri, to be honest.
It's as reliable as the people on the other end of the information, which, depending on where you're looking, I take the weather like the news, get multiple sources, and then kind of aggregate them, and you usually get somewhere in the middle, some kind of accuracy.
I 100% approve this answer. That is a smart way to use the weather on your phone.
Okay, that's exactly what I do. I like to go on all of the sites and then figure it out. But I have to say, if I ever really, really need to know, I just text you.
Thank you. That is the right answer, Anita. Yeah.
But we are here to talk a little bit more about this wonderful show. You know, it was only a matter of time before you got your own series.
Thank you, Anita. I mean, this is my dream show, working with a dream team here at CBC Vancouver. And you know that, I mean, I'm obsessed with the natural world around us, and particularly how climate change is impacting us. But I also know at the end of the day, it can be really hard to sit down and choose to learn about climate change. It can be really heavy. So I wanted this to be full of wonder and sparkle. I wanted to share with you all of the fascinating things that I get to learn about the planet around us, how it's adapting, and how it is being impacted in interesting ways by our warming planet. And you're looking at pictures and video from our first episode where we asked the question, what are trees saying to each other about climate change? And yes, I eat some dirt in episode 1. This is the second episode where we learn about how much carbon the ocean is taking in. And spoiler alert, it's way more than the trees on the planet. And I managed to convince the whole crew to go winter kayaking with me to learn the answer. So I just love that it's immersive. And next week, we're actually going up to Mount Washington to learn about snow and hopefully some snow solutions. And I welcome you all to join me on my adventures.
Well, we'll join you on your adventures. I'd love to come to Mount Washington,
I know,
too.
right? Yeah, I could bring my snowboard.
Thanks, Joe. Looking
You're
forward
welcome.
to seeing you.
Thank you.
Okay, coming up after the break, we've got more on how thieves are targeting homeowners and the calls for stricter rules.
Have you ever walked into a swanky affair all by yourself, dressed to the nines, head held high and confident, yet feeling just a little bit out of place because everywhere you look you see this? Well, one Vancouver arts group has come up with an alternative.
We're just reaching out to singles in the marketplace and saying, you know, we want to make it a comfortable experience for you to come to the Orpheum. Don't be intimidated by, you know, the glitter and glamour.
No more will bashful Barbaras or reticent Roberts have to stay home from the symphony. The Solo Club has arrived. Is there any little feeling inside of you that you could meet Prince Charming tonight?
Possibly.
May, like everyone here, has bought tickets for 4 symphonies and an informal get-together with conductor Clyde Mitchell, who also just happens to be single.
So the symphonic music written in the Romantic period by Richard Strauss is the stuff that you're very familiar with if you've seen Star Wars and Superman and Jaws.
The talk is also an opportunity for everybody to mingle.
I didn't come here to stand by myself. I mean, there's lots of people, so you kind of make conversation with whoever's standing around, and hopefully you'll meet somebody interesting that way.
I saw a lot of people connecting. I saw a lot of people just sort of scouting out and seeing who else would come to the symphony and who else has joined the Solo Club. Have I seen any connections? I'm not sure. I've been too busy pouring drinks.
What do you expect from this club?
Not very much, because I'm beyond help as far as anything. Don't you think so?
And if I meet somebody, great. If I don't, well, that's...
No one seems especially optimistic about meeting their soulmate at the symphony, but it has happened.
We met under the arches over here.
I turned around and I saw this vision. and it was it. Gail and I met on October the 5th, and we got married on May the 27th of the following year.
And you never know, it could happen again. There's magic in music, and maybe somebody here will strike just the right chord. Deborah Goebel, CBC News, Vancouver.
Land Back is a CBC original podcast where we uncover land theft in Canada and look at how Indigenous people are taking it all back. Land Back is out now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
Now, an exclusive interview with a couple who rented out their Toronto home, then were shocked to find out it had been sold without their knowledge. Tonight, they're calling for stricter rules to verify identities when real estate is bought and sold. Here's Farah Morali with the anguish they've endured.
We own an average house in Toronto.
Derek and Stephanie are still coming to grips with the past year.
It's not just financial trauma. It's emotional trauma, and it never leaves you.
CBC News has agreed not to use their real names because they're victims of identity theft. The couple moved overseas for work, and in 2021, new tenants rented out their Toronto house. Months later, Stephanie logged on to her online banking and noticed their mortgage info had vanished. The bank told them the mortgage was closed. A title search confirmed the home had been sold.
The moment we found out, it's just cold chills run through your body, and you can't help but feel an overwhelming sense of emotion.
They later learned the tenants with alleged ties to organized crime used fake IDs to rent their home. Others posed as Stephanie and Derek using forged ID, seemingly enough to fool everyone along the way.
I think that's what scares you most. You think, well, if the bank fails, the real estate board will catch it. Or if the real estate board fails, the lawyer who signs off on the house sale will catch it. So many educated people, it just passes by.
People from all different
One piece of
races,
government ID
creeds,
is
colors,
often all anyone needs to make a large real estate transaction.
What we're doing right now is not working.
Industry stakeholders say fake IDs are getting so advanced, it's time to demand more verification, like credit score searches and cell phone accounts.
Brokers, realtors, lawyers, title insurers, everyone who's obligated to look at the identity of someone, a multi-factor process is going to be much safer than what we're doing right now.
The Law Society of Ontario says its verification protocols are consistent with other law groups in Canada. The Ontario government told CBC News it's unveiling a new code of ethics for realtors, but offered no details on anti-fraud measures. RICO, which governs realtors, says it's reminding agents to be vigilant.
Because of the very lenient penalties.
That's not enough, say these victims.
We need tougher laws. We need the government to protect its citizens more from this type of crime.
The couple had title insurance and are close to resolving the situation, but say the ordeal will haunt them for a long time. Farah Morali, CBC News, Toronto.
We're getting an idea of how much COVID-19 misinformation has cost Canadians. The report by the Council of Canadian Academies looked at how vaccine hesitancy affected infections, hospitalizations, and deaths between March and November of 2021. The authors suggest misinformation contributed to vaccine hesitancy for more than 2 million Canadians. It estimates it cost at least 2,800 lives and $300 million in hospital expenses. Researchers say if more people had been willing to roll up their sleeves when the vaccine was first available to them, Canada would have seen fewer cases and fewer hospitalizations. Well, the federal government is announcing an appointment aimed at countering anti-Muslim discrimination and hate. Amira El-Gwabi will be the special representative on combating Islamophobia. As Katie Nicholson reports, she'll base her advice to the government on what Muslim Canadians tell her new office.
A dark and brutal day in Canadian history. Nearly 6 years after a gunman took the lives of 6 Muslim men in a Quebec mosque, a new appointment to lead the Canadian charge against Islamophobia.
It is my hope that I can act as a bridge builder and work with leaders to inspire all Canadians to better understand Muslim identities and cultures.
Amira El-Gwabi, a former journalist, now Canada's first ever special representative to combat Islamophobia.
Countering both persistent racism and misrepresentation of Canadian Muslim identities and cultures is a vital part of building a more inclusive society.
The appointment comes after high-profile, horrific attacks on Muslims in Canada. Numbers from the National Council of Canadian Muslims show that in recent years,
Canada has had the highest number of Muslims killed in hate-motivated attacks of all the G7 countries.
This is like a truly historic moment for the fight against Islamophobia in Canada. We've never had the fight against Islamophobia actually be institutionalized and have a home in government.
At the NCCM, there are hopes the new role can spark change at the highest levels, especially in the way national security agencies treated Muslims after 9/11.
Our national security agencies have a lot of work to do to build trust within the Muslim community. Surveillance, unfair profiling, trouble that people have just going about their everyday life because of that surveillance.
In London, Ontario, where 4 members of a Muslim family were killed when a vehicle plowed into them, the accused driver now awaiting trial on terror charges, today is especially meaningful.
This appointment is really a part of that healing process from that attack. So we really want to see more action.
And from this action, hope many more actions will follow. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Toronto.
The West Coast has acted as an ocean corridor for large vessels over the past couple hundred years. Coming up, we hear from a UBC scientist warning of the environmental impacts when those ships sink in our waters.
we're sharing really important information with the public. And I feel like this is exactly what our job is, especially as the public broadcaster, especially in morning radio. That's incredibly important.
Well, waters around BC have long served as a corridor for large vessels, and that means a fair share of shipwrecks since the early 1800s. Now, a scientist from UBC is highlighting the long-term environmental impacts of that wreckage, especially when it occurs in critical habitats for endangered species.
If we think about all the potential material, the debris, the discarded nets that can come from the shipwrecks, can be harmful for some species that are in low numbers.
Alava says the ships that sink to the ocean floor can create artificial habitats for certain species, allowing them to hide from predators. But he also warns the wreckages could pose a threat, especially if the vessels are carrying dangerous contents like oil. He's calling for preventative measures and better emergency responses for accidents in the water.
It's very difficult to really get rid of all these shipwrecks that are already in the bottom of the ocean. And prevention is better than cure. I think the idea to have specific lanes in maritime lanes area where the ships can use for navigation.
Alava is urging stricter passage laws in critical areas of the water, as well as limiting the vessels with oil tankers. Okay, Johanna is back. And Joe, we forgot to mention earlier, but for people watching, if you actually want to see the full episodes of Planet Wonder, you can find them on CBC Vancouver's YouTube page, CBC Gem, and our new free streaming channel, CBC Explore.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, with that, we're turning to our weather and the craziness that's about to come.
Yes, I would say we can call it craziness when we're talking, a 5 to 20 degree temperature change in BC this weekend. It's going to affect all of Canada, though, and I wanted to show you the current temperatures tonight because this is where it is right now, really just locked up in through northern Ontario, but it is going to spread westward very quickly over the next 24, 48 hours. The eastern half of the country is still getting over a snowstorm, and this same air mass is now going to change the snow for very cold temperatures. This is a coast-to-coast story, but wanted to show you for anyone who was following that Ontario storm. It was the biggest storm for Ontario and Quebec that we've seen so far this season, 30 centimeters and counting. We will see that fresh blast of snow across the southeast tonight, thinking more like 10 centimeters for places like Kimberley. This is the Arctic front, though, that will bring a fresh shot of snow through Friday and Saturday, and then as it races towards the coast, it'll lose that precip, but we'll still see those gusty winds and those cold temperatures that'll drag down. So here's a snapshot Saturday, 5 p.m. Notice how clear that province is once that cold front has sunk south of the border, but then the door is open to that Arctic air that'll race in from the northeast, and we stay cold and clear through most of next week. So enjoy seasonal the next couple of days, but start to ease into that awareness that we are going to get very cold. 3 tomorrow and through Prince George. Flurries will change over to showers. I think you'll see some sun. 2 for Williams Lake. And Prince Rupert, I do think you'll get some sun in the afternoon once you get through that rain. Okay, really wanted to break down the long-range forecast, starting with the clearing that we will get tomorrow, hoping for some sunny breaks, highs to 7, which is actually our seasonal for this time of the year. Sunny and seasonal for Saturday will be lovely. It's Saturday night that we'll start to get into that cold air, which means Sunday morning is going to be about -5, with a wind chill and brisk winds. What a difference our 2 weekend days will be with those temperatures. At this point, it looks like this cold air mass sticks around through till Tuesday at the very least. So this is where we're talking daytime highs that won't get above the freezing mark, -10 or colder wind chills and slippery conditions. It's clear but cold, so lots of frost and ice on the grounds. This is the exit strategy that we're working with for this system. Anita, it looks like by Wednesday and Thursday we'll warm up, but could come with some snow. We haven't honed in on that yet. I'll keep you posted.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
How a love for a popular Filipino dessert led 2 best friends to go into business together. Their story coming up.
Hello. There's one that's definitely ready, so we can tell that his wings are all dry and he's flying around already. So if we let him out into the butterfly gardens here, he could fly around, he could go find food. We get butterflies in at their third stage. So there's 4 stages to a butterfly's life cycle: the egg stage, the caterpillar stage, and then the chrysalis stage. We get them from Costa Rica in the chrysalis stage. So that is the only way that you can get them in. So this is our emergence chamber. So as you can tell, we've got a couple of humidifiers in there to bring the optimum humidity is 80%. You can see this one here that's just come out of its chrysalis, but its wings are formed. If it's still hanging out there, it's still drying off, which could take a few hours. So all of the butterflies here are Costa Rican butterflies. We get in a new shipment every 2 weeks. And we do have some reoccurring butterflies that do really well that we know we have a lot of knowledge on. So those will keep getting back, but we're also trying new ones now and then. The most spectacular of the Costa Rican butterflies is the blue morpho. And so the males will have, when their wings are open, the inside is this brilliant blue color. And then when they're closed, the outside almost looks like they have little eyes. So, and they're huge. I love seeing someone's face light up at whatever it is that they're interested in. So for some people, they're excited about the butterflies. For others, it's the plants, because we do have different plants up here that they don't have downstairs in the biomes. It brings what I'm passionate about is animal care, brings it to the leaf, which is really exciting. So we're gonna see if this one's ready to come out. So I may just encourage it, let it know that it can fly. I'll just get my finger underneath and see if it's ready. Are you ready to fly? Here we go. But that's it. Now I have to figure out which one that is because I have to keep records.
Well, 2 best friends have just opened a new bakery and cafe in Halifax. It's a celebration of their love for ube, a purple yam used in Filipino desserts. And as Colleen Jones reports, customers can also immerse themselves in 2D murals depicting their journey from the Philippines to Nova Scotia.
This story combines my 2 favorite things, cats and coffee. Meet best friends Gracie Fermiza and Chris Alvarez heading into their month-old business, Zena's Bread and Butter, named after Gracie's cat.
So everybody's asking us who's Zena, and this is Zena.
Their business began just at the start of COVID, missing a favorite cookie from the Philippines.
We started 2020. It's like a pre-pandemic business. I was just craving actually chocolate crinkles that's very famous as cookies back home.
So they perfected that recipe and a few more and started selling at the Alderney Farmers Market. Hard work? You bet. After finishing their Friday 12-hour shift as home care workers, they would head to a commercial kitchen to make their baked goods from 9 p.m. to 7 a.m., then hit the market by 8 a.m. with their fresh goods. The response was so strong, they started dreaming of a storefront operation.
Young coconut pie, it's a very famous dessert.
How excited are you both to be working together and starting your own business?
We couldn't believe, actually, like we were just dreaming out of it. Even this setup, we were like, oh, maybe we could practice, like somebody's gonna interview us, telling our stories, and then where we started up.
Their story? Well, it's drawn right on the walls, starting with life in the Philippines.
Mabuhay.
Mabuhay,
it's like hello.
Zena's is a walk through history.
Theirs is to like a bless, or like this.
Like that.
Finally, their journey to Nova Scotia.
Nova Scotia is the birth of Zena's bread and butter. So that's what we combine in this wall. And Philippines, one of the famous living is fishing,
yeah.
Just like here.
But let's get to the coffee. Gracie's making me one of the house specialties.
Purple yam dalgona, so it's made with ice, with espresso shot, with milk, and then our homemade purple yam cream on the top.
Purple yam on top of my coffee? You heard that right.
This is so good.
Treats were great too. Ube cheese pandesal, anyone?
Sweet, but not too sweet.
The Haligonians and even other nationalities are very, very, very supportive.
But don't expect to meet Zena the cat here. She was making a cameo appearance just for us. Colleen Jones, CBC News, Halifax.
That brings us to the end of CBC Vancouver News tonight. Thank you so much for being with us. Dan is in the host chair tomorrow, and I will see you next week.